All right, everyone, we're going to get started this morning. My name is Catherine Zobri. I'm with the Alabama Small Business Development Center. We provide no-cost one-on-one business advising, technical assistance, and training. And today I'll be talking about staffing and your competitive advantage. First, a little bit more about Rebound Birmingham. This is a series of events that over 14 different partners in the Birmingham area put together in an effort to really help small businesses in Birmingham and the surrounding areas rebound. So you can see some of their names here. We've had speakers from actually all around the country come and talk about everything from marketing to cash flow. And so if you haven't checked out any of our other trainings, don't worry, we've got them all on YouTube. So if you just search Rebound Birmingham in YouTube, you'll be able to find those videos. And we have a number of other trainings coming up, and those you can find on Eventbrite, and I'll share those with you after the presentation. So first, a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone is muted to start. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. There will be plenty of time at the end for discussions and questions, and throughout the presentation, I will be asking for your feedback. This is really just the beginning. So we're all here for you to help your businesses succeed through this crisis as well as thrive into the future. And so, like I said, you can check out the additional trainings at reboundbham.eventbrite.com, same way you signed up for today's presentation. And to get text updates, you can text Rebound to 267-839-8738. This is going to be recorded, and the slides will be available after the presentation. So what I would encourage you to do is don't furiously write notes. Unless that's how you process things. There'll be time for you to revisit this presentation after we get through it today. What I would like you to do is to think critically about how these concepts apply to your business and ask questions that are most pressing to you throughout the conversation. All right, so let's get started. Minor technical difficulties. Thanks for hanging in there. All right. Okay, so staffing and competitive advantage. My first question is to you, what is your most competitive advantage? So I'm going to put up a poll on the screen. You should be able to click one of the following areas. Now, obviously, we're talking about staffing today, but tell me what you think your most competitive advantage is, whether you've got 1 employee, no employees, or 499. Tell me what your competitive advantage is. So the options on the screen are price, quality, customer service, unique products, location, workforce, labor, cost management, brand awareness, and of course, other, right? So I'll give it about 5 more seconds. This is anonymous, so don't worry about sharing. And then we can move on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, awesome. Can you see the poll? Can you see the poll responses on the screen? No, okay. I will read them out then. Ashley says yes. So the no one has said price or quality. Customer service and unique products and services are the top 2. So we had 3 people answer that their unique products and services and their customer service are their most important competitive advantage. Today I'm going to make an argument that we have 2 secret weapons when, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, sharing results. So today I'm going to make an argument that one of your most important competitive advantages is really your relationships, and especially that with your workforce. So in today's agenda, we're going to talk about what your competitive advantage is. We're going to talk about hiring for success, cross-training for resilience, leading through crisis, and labor and financial statements. So with the agenda, I should fully, full disclosure, I am not an HR professional. I am absolutely not. I don't know the rules, the laws around hiring and firing folks. And so we'll talk about some resources at the end where you can find and get these resources that you need to make some of these important decisions so that you're not writing job ads or help wanted ads that might be crossing some legal lines. Okay, so a competitive advantage is any condition or circumstance that puts a company in a favorable or superior business position. Often, any of those ones that we listed in that poll are perfect examples of competitive advantage. Now, competitive advantage, the stability of that is what's in question, right? So someone can always come in and beat your price, right? It's not a new concept to us now, but when Amazon first started doing free shipping, that hurt a lot of sellers on Amazon. So your competitive advantage of your price may have been totally undercut by a company like Amazon. If your intellectual property is your competitive advantage, if your idea is worth stealing, like if you have a decent market share, you're going to get copycats in the industry. And so even a protected intellectual property can be very difficult competitive advantage to protect. So in business, we have two secret weapons that very few other companies can copy. The first is your cash flow management. Nobody knows the ins and outs of your cash flow like you and possibly your bookkeeper. The second, and what we're focusing on today, is your relationships. Your relationships with friends and family, your workers and staff, support professionals like the folks over at Rev Birmingham, like Alabama Small Business Development Center. Victor Brown is a huge proponent of small businesses at the Birmingham Business Alliance. Charmaine Chapman with Operation Hope, Gloria Glasgow with HICA, and so many more that you would have seen on that first slide. So, and your strategic partners. Those are your vendors, your suppliers, generally city or state government officials, departments of revenue. Sometimes the regional planning commissions can be strategic partners, as well as chambers of commerce. Okay, so let's dive right into it because I want to make sure we've got enough time to review resources. So hiring for success. This might be counterintuitive, but when you are writing a job description, when you're thinking about hiring a position, you really want to start with your vision and mission statement. And so that's where I want to start today. I would love it if you could drop in the chat what your vision or mission statement are. If it's a draft, that's fine. If you just have core values to start with, I'd love to hear them. So go ahead and drop them in the chat now. The next thing you want to think about while folks are typing, the next thing you want to think about is performing a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is an evaluation of your strengths and weaknesses, which is internal to the company or your team or yourself if you're the only one in that company, and opportunities and threats, which are external. So a threat, for example, is the pandemic that's going on. An opportunity on the other side of that, right, might be that instead of making clothing, you're making masks, right? So that could be an opportunity to diversify your product line and meet the new market need. Awesome. So we've got some vision and mission statements that came through the chat. So Taylor Clark from Rev writes, "We believe Birmingham is the most vibrant market in the Southeast, where everyone can realize their dreams." Sean P. writes, "We strive to improve the health of the community by providing versatile, prompt, and affordable healthcare experiences." And Hope Thornborough writes, "Providing clean and sober living environments for natives with mental health conditions." Awesome. So the core values are really baked into that. And starting with your vision and mission is going to allow those job descriptions to be really authentic to what your company actually needs. So performing that SWOT analysis really is the next steps, because you want to hire for your weaknesses. You want to We always say you sell your strengths and you pay for your weaknesses, right? And so part of that paying for your weaknesses is hiring those gaps, right? Hiring folks to fill the gaps that you have in your company, whether it's an independent contractor, whether it is a temp worker from a staffing agency, whether it is a full-time employee, an apprentice, an intern, and we'll talk more about all of those different types of positions later. But you want to know what opportunities you might be hiring them for. So is it a project-based position that you're hiring for? You might be looking for more of an independent contractor. If it's something that you expect to be a long-term change, like a demographic shift, or I saw mental health care, if we're talking about, the increasing mental health care needs of populations, then that might be a long-term position that you're hiring for, somebody more like an independent contractor or an employee. Outlining internal processes to identify those gaps. And this is an important and often overlooked part, because especially as solopreneurs, most people are doing it all on their own. Or even if you have a staff, there's a good chance as the CEO of your company or whatever position you hold, you're doing more than just what you thought your job description was when you signed up to be the owner of a company, right? You probably didn't expect yourself to be cleaning quite as many bathrooms as you might be cleaning, or sanitizing everything now due to COVID, or purchasing face masks. Those might be jobs that you didn't even expect to have to do. So outlining internal processes to identify gaps is going to be the next step in really honing in on what hiring opportunities you may have now, what might you be hiring for in the future. Finally, writing a good job description for all the potential positions in your company. And this is especially dedicated, this one is a shout out to my solopreneurs and single person warriors out there running businesses. Writing a job description of all the potential positions in your company is going to allow you to mentally understand where you can outsource and at what point. At what point do you hire a bookkeeper? At what point do you hire not just an outside firm to do your bookkeeping, but somebody that's going to come to your business virtually or physically on a daily or weekly basis to run your books, right? Understand that will allow you to prioritize all of those different aspects in your company. And so when we're thinking about hiring for success, it's not a one-day activity. It's a continuous process. And now I hate the word continuous because there's no like success at the end of continuous, right? That's a forever thing. So if you want to redefine all of these pieces on either an annual basis, a quarterly basis, or when something big happens, that's when we lean back on performing a SWOT analysis, identifying internal processes and identifying gaps, and writing new job descriptions. Finally, creating that structure. That's what I sort of alluded to in thinking through the structure of the internal processes, so you can understand what positions you might want to hire for in a particular order, right? Like you need sales coming in, so you might need a salesperson. If it's your marketing that's the problem and you can handle the sales, then maybe you need somebody to do the marketing for you. And allowing upward mobility opportunities. Many people look for opportunities that they have space to grow into. And so if you're hiring somebody who maybe doesn't have all of the, I'm going to say requirements, but not, the preferential experience, you can still hire for that position and then train those preferential experiences into that person. So let's talk about a couple areas within this. And if you don't have a vision or mission statement or need some help working on it, that's what all the partners in Rebound Birmingham are here to help you with. If you need a little bit of help either doing a SWOT analysis in terms of the facilitation of one for you and your team, or if you need help just understanding, okay, what is technically internal or external? I need some more data. How can I get that data? The Alabama Small Business Development Center is here to help you at no cost. Rev Birmingham is here to help you, and so many other of the partners. So let's talk about writing a good help wanted ad. And at this point, I want to remind you, I'm not an HR executive, and I would recommend letting an HR person look at your help wanted ad so that you are not accidentally discriminating against a protected class. So these are just very general, this is very general guidance, but something that you want to keep at the core of your job description. So you want to speak to the vision, the mission, and the culture of your company. If you are somebody that mandates or that expects people to show up clean cut every day on time, that's part of your culture. If you have a laid back culture and you are okay if people come in late as long as the job gets done, that's part of your culture. If you have a sense of humor and that's part of your brand and the culture of your company, you're going to want to hire somebody with a similar sense of humor. Or maybe if they're not customer facing or brand outward facing, if they are the bookkeeper or accountant of your organization, or if they're the compliance officer in the healthcare related world, you might not want somebody, or it might not be something that you need them to have a sense of humor about. You might need them to be more detailed oriented, because the culture, part of the culture of your company is staying in compliance. So you want to hire for flexible skills and teach the specific job. Now that a piece of advice is for a longer term hiring pathway. That is, if you need somebody right now with the skills to get the job done before the end of business today, you need somebody who has that knowledge, right? Like if you are hiring for a computer programming or back end, you need somebody to fix your app or your website now, then you need to hire somebody with those skills. But if you're hiring somebody who is going to be customer facing, or if you're hiring somebody to eventually build and maintain your website and social media, providing opportunities for them to learn the skills and being structured about it, that comes back to that structure, and defining those internal processes, knowing who they're reporting to specifically. Does sales report to marketing? Does marketing report to sales? Who does sales report to? Who do those two groups report to? Do they report to the finance officer, or do they report directly to you? So hiring for flexible skills and teaching the specific job, part of that is going to be teaching the vision, mission, and culture of your business. In a fantastic book by Jim Collins, he writes, first who, then what? You want to hire folks who are good for your company, and then decide what to do and where to take them. Obviously, that's a much longer time horizon than some folks have a need for. If you need an extra person to join your lawn crew because you've got two insurable folks and 3 trucks that you need out in the field getting stuff done, or if you've got 2 nurses and you have 6 clients that need assistance all at the same time, you're not going to be able to pay for that person to finish their nursing degree before you hire them, right? But you can absolutely teach different aspects of the job to make sure that they are suited to your company. Andy writes, hiring A+ people is a must. Absolutely. And right now there is an abundance of workforce available with the layoffs that are happening. That means it's going to take more time to sift through those applications, which makes writing the help wanted ad specific to your vision, mission, and culture really important. Because what an A+ person is to you, Andy, is not going to be the same as what an A+ person is to me. And that's good. That's because our organizations are different. Okay, so let's talk about building a talent pipeline. So again, we're going to talk about resources at the end if you need an HR person, or if you need talent sooner than you have time to develop this. But building a talent pipeline is absolutely critical. It's one of those important tasks that often gets crowded out by the urgency of everyday life. So every time you sit down to create a talent pipeline and an email comes through, or a text message comes through, or something pops up on your feed, you're going to get distracted by that. That is incredibly normal, happens to the best of us. I'm sitting here right now with my phone. So it happens, right? So we need to make sure to carve out time. This is part of working on your business, not just in your business. So putting some time aside 30 minutes a week is perfectly sufficient to work on pieces of your company, and building that talent pipeline is a fantastic way to really make sure that your business is sustainable or organization is sustainable. And so where can you find folks to kind of slot into different places in that pipeline? Well, you can develop an internship program. Both UA and UAB have internship programs, and because so many people are working remotely right now, you can find interns not just at UA and UAB, but probably all around the country. Apprenticeships. I just saw a sign posted on the side of the road this morning about West Alabama Works apprenticeship programs. And so often in the state of Alabama, the apprenticeships are an exceptionally good way to find out or get somebody into your spot or get somebody into your company, the spot that you might need to eventually hire for, with a fairly low cost to you. A lot of times the apprenticeship programs, the cost burden is shared by the state or by the apprenticeship agency. And so looking into apprenticeship opportunities. And apprenticeships are much broader than sort of what you would typically think of, like welding and HVAC work. I know an artist that uses apprentices. Almost all the companies that I eventually got jobs with, I had internships with before I worked with them. So thinking through what an internship program, what an apprenticeship program might be able to do for your company is a really good way to build that pipeline, build that interest in your company, as well as bring in some new blood, right? Staying agile on your feet is part of a resilient company. And so listening to diversity across generations is a part of that. So in hiring independent contractors, when I first started working for the Alabama Small Business Development Center, they hired me as an independent contractor. And I sat in with a number of different business advisors around the state to really get an idea of like, what was the quality, how was the communication, what were the expectations that the advisors would set for clients, what was the breadth and the depth of knowledge that advisors would bring to the table, and how could that be leveraged for the benefit of the client. I was hired as an independent contractor for a year. I was an independent contractor for a year before they, and I was dropping heavy hints. I was like, anytime you want to hire me as an employee, would be amazing. So at the end of the year, they took the hint and hired me on as a full-time employee. And so hiring an independent contractor, there's a lot more leeway in the relationship there, right? So the IRS has a specific definition for an independent contractor. I think it's like a 9-point test or something like that. And it's all about the control and relationship. And so you are, as an employer, you are putting a lot less risk into an independent contractor than an employee because, the contract ends, it doesn't have to be renewed. Temp and staffing agencies are also a fantastic place to start. Now, let me say something about independent contractors and temping and staff agencies. You're going to pay more for those folks per hour for them. So an independent contractor is responsible for their own business licenses often and expenses, healthcare, everything like that. So you can expect to pay anywhere up to 25 to 50% more for that independent contractor than you would for an employee, right? Because you're paying them like a flat rate and they're taking care of their own employment taxes, right? Which average around 15%. And can increase by their income bracket. And a temping and staffing agency, right? The trade-off is that you don't have to do the hiring per se. You get to work with a company that has those HR professionals in-house. And if it is just a temporary position, that's a great way to get somebody in there that has those qualifications immediately. Or if you want to test somebody out to see if really that is going to be a good fit, or if that position is going to hang around for a little while, it's a good idea to start with either independent contractors or temping and staffing agencies. Now, what we saw, one of the huge downsides of using independent contractors and temping and staffing agencies is if that's your workforce, you have very little control over how you're branding may come across of your company. And additionally, the access to funding from the federal government. So the EIDL loan is still available. The PPP is not anymore, but one of the downsides was that folks who used primarily independent contractors could not claim them as employees on their PPP application. So that, that's something to think about as we still struggle with the pandemic. Networking, keeping a resume file, like a file of resumes that you've got coming in, and keeping your marketing materials up to date on opportunities that you might see are all good ideas. Just because you have a search doesn't mean you have to fulfill that search. And so making sure that you're continuously generating interest in people working for your company is part of marketing and part of branding for your company. Okay, cross-training for resilience. Now, we are all in a time of crisis right now. And so facilitating open communication and frequent communication, the more difficult the circumstances, is really important when things start to go a little nuts. So for example, when we normally have a statewide metrics call to check in with all the centers, because we've got about 10 centers around the state, 40 full-time business advisors. So we've got a lot of people kind of operating all around the state. And so when the pandemic hit, the PPP and the EIDL loan started getting rolled out, we went from monthly meetings to weekly meetings. And the focus of the weekly meetings wasn't just on general stuff, how are you all feeling, but it was about an update on specifically how are we helping folks applying to the PPP and EIDL. So facilitate whatever the crisis is that your business is facing. If it's if it's that people are losing their health insurance and you're seeing an influx of folks, or the isolation is causing an increase in symptoms of mental illness, then you might be seeing a larger volume than you've experienced in the past. And so facilitating open communication, checking in with your team, checking in with yourself and your family is really, really important, so that you know where everybody is, where potential burnouts are going to happen, so that you can kind of cover them. Document processes. And this is something, again, you can do it as you go along. You can do it all at once. It's usually a pretty burdensome process if you try and do it all at once. So that might be a thing to do during a more calm time of the year. So if you have a highly seasonal business, that would be a great thing to do during a slower period of time. But documenting processes, again, that comes back to one of the keys for hiring for success, making sure that okay, so to get from A to B, first we do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, quality check at step 5, then we proceed to 6 and 7. At that point, you notify the manager, and then the case manager takes over from there. Monthly professional development opportunities. We have an annual professional development requirement. Having it broken down on a monthly level, I find, is much more appropriate for smaller staff, because it keeps that long-term vision of the company, the identity of the company, much stronger. It's an opportunity for folks to really realize, okay, this isn't just a job. We are working towards a mission and a vision, and the professional development is helping me become more efficient or effective at reaching that mission or vision that we're working towards. And supporting development of critical and foundational skills. And so, these seem really basic things, but I am a believer that if you nail the basics, then the complex stuff comes so much easier. It just really does. You can't spell words without knowing the alphabet, kind of thing. So computer or software literacy, whatever software you use. And this goes for the owners and leadership of the company as well. We did a fantastic seminar on QuickBooks Deep Dive, and there were dozens of companies that were like, wait, how do you enter inventory? And these are product-based companies. How do you deal with sales? How do you do all of this? So QuickBooks or your accounting software, that's an important software literacy skill. Computer literacy skills. How much typing do you do in your day-to-day work? How often do you host Zoom calls or communicate with clients over the phone, right? If you can improve your typing speed from, let's say, 40 to 80 words a minute, you've doubled the speed in which you can process paperwork. If you can understand your cash flow, you can understand and maximize your profit, right? And if you can understand your communication skills and weaknesses, you can understand how to get folks from step A to step B as quickly as possible, or as efficiently as possible, if that's part of your mission or vision. Maybe it's not about efficiency, maybe it's about effectiveness. Okay, leading through crisis. So leading through crisis involves a tremendous amount of humility. And so leading through crisis is really starts with listening, understanding, and then innovating. So once you listen and understand, then you can innovate. The difference between innovation and creativity or creativeness is that innovation takes something that exists already and makes tiny changes and measures those changes and the outcome from those changes. Creativity is thinking of a whole new solution. And so creativity is not something that is necessarily measured in business, whereas innovation is. And so that's why I very specifically use that word. Increased frequency of communication on critical topics. So we covered that a little bit in the last topic, but I really want to emphasize that communication is really important. Especially because, and I'll kind of tie this all up at the end, but the next thing is to identify and repeat your 2 wildly important goals to your team. So just two. And you must be thinking, because when I heard this piece of advice, I was like, okay, I've got like 1,000 goals. And they're all wildly important. Like, I've got to remember to feed the cats. I definitely need to feed my fiance. I need to get 8 hours of sleep to be functional. And then I've got everything else I need to do with work. So thinking about what are the 2 most important things that are going to move your company forward, right? Those are your wildly important goals. What are you not doing now, or what are you doing now that can be done better that are going to move your company forward? If it's referrals from clients, if it's positive customer feedback, if it's profit over revenue, something like that. Those are really good, wildly important goals. Now, specifically, wildly important goals tend to be phrased as a from X to Y by when. So from where you are now to your goal by a due date. So for me, in my personal life, I've put on the COVID-15, and I would like to lose that by October 1st. And so on a whiteboard in my living room, I put from my current weight to my goal weight, minus 15 pounds, by October 1st. And then I have weekly check-ins and weigh-ins that I work with. So for your company, what that means is maybe you want to shrink inefficiencies. Maybe you want to become more efficient in data processing. Maybe that means you just become faster at typing. Maybe it means that you outsource that piece. So communicating and repeating, this is important. You may sound like a broken record to yourself, but we live in a crazy busy world. The average person sees something like 200 ads a day or something crazy like that. Like it's way over 100. It's more than you would expect. And if you're on social media consistently, you can bump that up with add just another 0 to the end of that. And so repeating your messaging is not you being a broken record. It's you emphasizing that these really are the most important things that you're working towards, because they move you closer to succeeding with your mission and achieving the vision that you have for your business and for the future. Your job as the leadership in your company is to remove barriers from your staff's way so that they can accomplish those 2 wildly important goals. So if, for example, the computer is slow because it's got too much, maybe it's just a couple years old, getting a new computer. That would be removing a barrier. If the software that you use doesn't interface with the compliance software, figuring out a workaround, or outsourcing that piece of the puzzle so that your staff isn't burdened by, just transferring documents back and forth. Or maybe you can just do that at night so that it's done by the time you get in the morning. And then innovating around obstacles. So obstacles and barriers are gonna pop up, right? The pandemic has certainly thrown us all for a loop. But creating innovative ways to connect and lead around them. Sometimes we just get caught up in the crisis of, oh my gosh, this is where we are. How crazy are things right now? Sometimes it says, sometimes you as a leader need to say, okay, this is where we are now. We're going to get through this. Let's figure out how we can get around it. What incremental steps can we take to change what we can possibly change to make our situation better? So there are 5 levels of leadership, and this again is from Jim Collins's Good to Great book, which is one of my absolute favorite books on business. And so level 5 leadership is the executive level, and these are skill sets. These are not, titles in a company. So, your cashier can have a level 5 executive leadership skill level, but be a cashier, so it doesn't mean that it doesn't have anything to do with the actual position. The level 5 executive builds an enduring greatness through paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. So they combine personal humility and professional will to get the job done. An effective leader catalyzes commitment to and vigorous pursuit of clear and compelling vision, stimulating higher performance standards. A competent manager organizes people and resources towards the effective and efficient pursuit of predetermined objectives. Contributing team member is someone that contributes individual capabilities to the achievement of group objectives and works effectively with others in group setting. And level 1, a highly capable individual makes productive contributions through talent, knowledge, skill, and good work habit. So when we're talking about Kelly, don't worry, Hope, don't worry, all the slides will be available afterwards. So, and that's why I read it out loud. These skill sets are the opportunity for your team to develop professional skills, right? This is the upward management type skill sets that you can help build in your team so that they are executive level 5 leadership. Now, why am I talking about leadership when it comes to staffing? Well, sometimes we are our own worst enemy, right? We are humans and we have our breakdowns and breakthroughs. And so being a successful leader means working on ourselves so that we are communicating with our team, and not just this needs to be done now, why isn't it done now, who's to blame for this kind of way, but why did this happen, how can we avoid this in the future? How can we avoid this in the future says to employees or to your staff and workforce and relationships that it's okay that mistakes happen, right? You can't innovate, you can't come up with crazy innovative ideas that might make your company tons of money or get tons of additional clientele without innovation, but that means that you're going to take risks. And as a leader, taking risks in some areas is perfectly acceptable. It's an exciting part of being a leader, and coaching that into your team members allows them to understand what things you can take risks with. You cannot take risks when it comes to compliance. So one of the things that at SBDC we cannot take risks with is client confidentiality. We cover the whole state. It's a free or no cost service. You can imagine that we have a lot of demand, and we don't turn folks away. So if you come to us and you need our help, we're going to help you. But that means client confidentiality is super important. If we break that confidentiality, we break the trust, and then we have nothing, right? So having that, understanding and helping your team understand why and where they can innovate, how they can take risks, and in what ways they can be a leader amongst themselves and amongst their customers as well. So I want to go back really quick to thinking through, leading through crisis. The conversation around staffing and your competitive advantage, we started by talking about your relationships, right? And you're not always going to be the leader in all of your relationships, but with your staff, with the folks that work and do the work for you, it is really important to be that leader, so that they know you can, if they're working on something and cannot get through to the other side, you can help them remove that barrier. You can help them innovate around that obstacle to be successful. Businesses where their staff feel like they are accomplishing things have a lower turnover. And that is a wonderful thing to be able to keep the staff, because your competitive advantage is contingent on keeping those relationships strong. So why is your competitive advantage? What is the relationship between your competitive advantage and your relationships? It's that it can't be copied. It cannot be replicated. Even if the same worker goes and works for a different company, their relationship with the staff, with the strategic partners, with the customers, with the leadership of that company is going to be very different, right? And so that's why starting with your mission and vision statement, starting with the culture of your company to write those job application questions and help wanted ads is extremely important, because that relationship that you form, it's not going to be like anything anybody else forms with that individual. And then you can leverage that for your competitive advantage. It's a piece of the puzzle that cannot be easily replicated. Okay, so now let's talk about labor and financial statements. So we use we use a number of tools, but the one that I'm showing here today is by SageWorks. It's called ProfitSense, and it pulls financial statements from around the country, and it uses actual financial statements. So it's an accounting software that accountants use. They basically upload tax returns to this software, and then can run different kinds of analyses like benchmarking. And so what we use, it de-identifies and aggregates all this information, as well as putting it into often percentage form. But what it does, it offers some really interesting and unique financial metrics. And so I use the full service restaurant industry with yearly sales under $1 million in the state of Alabama. And so you can see here the last 12 months, there were 9 financial statements, which is not really enough to create data. And then within the last 5 years, 133 statements, but they didn't include sales per employee or profit per employee. But you can see that in all years, they did have some good numbers here. So your staff are going to show up on your financial statements, right? Your payroll is going to show up on your cash flow statement. Your sales per employee or profit per employee is an important industry financial metric. So at this point, I'd like to ask, what industries do we have with us today? And I am going to run some data for you. So if you could just drop in the chat what industry you work in, and I will go ahead and, I thought I had that. Oh, I'm sorry. Sales, healthcare, awesome. Okay, beautiful. There it is. Okay. Okay. You see the profit cents page that I've got up right now? All right. So let's look at sales. Okay, can you be more specific about sales, Susan? And in the meantime, I'm going to look up healthcare. Let's look at home healthcare services. We'll just urgent care. Okay. We'll do outpatient care centers. Okay. See if we can get enough data for this. We'll do under $1 million. Okay. So we've got profit per employee. It didn't have enough data there, but it also, so you can kind of see the rest of the financial report here. So let me broaden this out to, instead of just state, we'll look at the region, see if we can get that number to give you a benchmark. Okay. All right, it looks like for all years, the profit per employee is around $15,000. Now that's profit, that's not revenue. So it looks like we don't have an average revenue number using this particular tool because it crunches the numbers into ratios basically, but we can see the current quick gross profit margin, right? Inventory days, accounts receivable, payable, interest coverage ratio, all of these fun things, as well as the profit per employee. And so you can kind of see all of the different accounts that this, I really love this software. Okay, and then the common size, the income statements, so you might know that as your profit and loss statement. Payroll generally makes up 33%, and that is based off of 13 financial statements across the South in the last 12 months. Rent is 7%, advertising is only 1.3%. So payroll is a pretty big cost on your profit and loss statement for urgent care centers. All right, let's look at architectural salvage. All right, let's see if we got architectural services. Susan, do you sell retail? Let's just, sometimes I have to do it this way. All right. Okay, 453310. Let's try that. All right. I'm going to do region again. Then we'll do sales under $1 million. Okay, awesome. So sales per employee, in the last 5 years, the average has been $175,000. And then profit per employee is $7,638. Now, if that sounds like a crazy large number, remember we're looking at all businesses in the South that are in the used merchandise store industry. So my guess is that includes like American thrift stores and all of the sort of thrift stores that are high volume stuff, and yearly sales under $1 million. So it's just a benchmark, and you have to take those considerations into play when you're looking at these numbers. So don't get intimidated if you're like, my employees don't bring in $175,000 a year. Don't worry about it. But having that benchmark year over year in your own business will help you decide, okay, so do I have an outstanding salesperson that I need to, that can be in a leadership role over the sales team, right? And train other people. Do I have some laggers? Is it a motivational issue? Are they not connected to the mission and vision of the company? How can I bring them up to, or even improve their performance by 5, 10, 15%? What would that do for your bottom line, right? It would get you closer to that profit per employee benchmark. Okay, and residential behavioral health centers, let's do that one as well. Let's try inpatient. Let's look at this one just for now. Kelly Marie Hope, if this doesn't match what you do, let me know through email, and I'll, we can go back and forth and figure out what is a better fit for you. Let's see. Okay. So sales per employee over 100,000 there, and profit per employee, we're looking at $5,000. So that's a very small percentage of profit that's coming from the sales per employee. So that profit margin is, as I would expect, pretty low. Yep, look at that net profit margin, 5% right there. So those are the kinds of benchmarks that we can use to kind of think through the different aspects. If we look down at the income statement, your payroll is going to make up about 57% of your costs, or of your revenue rather. So it's a big expense, So thinking through the competitive advantage, cash flow and your staffing competitive advantages are extremely linked, because for most businesses, payroll and labor expenses are one of the largest, expenses. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, all right. So at this point, I'm going to share some resources. Can you see the resource screen? Is a resource screen visible? Okay, great. Okay, so I mentioned this book a couple times, Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's on Audible. It's at the Birmingham Public Library. I think you can get I think you can download an Audible version of it through the Birmingham Public Library. The 4 Disciplines of Execution, I'm about 2/3 of the way through that book now, and it is fabulous. It is an absolute game changer. Talking about aligning your team, as well as cutting through the urgencies of everyday life to get to your wildly important goals. 2 TED Talks I watched in preparation for this session are HR lessons from the world of Silicon Valley startups, and 8 lessons on building a company people enjoy working for. And then your last resource is obviously hiring a third-party HR manager or compliance manager to help you manage that piece. So I'm going to show you some of what those third-party companies would look like online or in the Birmingham area. And at this point, I will turn it over to Taylor to let us know what kinds of questions came through the chat. So we've got Bambi. Bulo is a local company there in Birmingham. Operations Inc. And you can find consultants on freelance websites like HR Consulting Jobs. So that is the end of my presentation. What questions do we have?
So, says that she wants to create an atmosphere of growth and employee appreciation. And I think that is so awesome. That speaks to, your core values, and going back to your point earlier, really leading your organizational culture with your core values and creating places where people want to work and making sure that you're hiring to those shared core values. If you have any thoughts about how to create and hire to a culture of employee appreciation, I think those would be welcome.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Those are definitely qualities that are kind of on the soft side. They're hard to evaluate, but you can evaluate them based on how your current staff or how you behave. And so thinking through just the attitude and the sort of nonverbal parts of the way somebody acts in an interview. Do they show up on time? Do they say please and thank you? Do they hold doors, or do they wait for you to finish speaking before you start, before you finish speaking? Do they apologize if they make a mistake? Those kinds of pleasantries will go a long way. It is, creating an environment to generate the growth and appreciation is a really tough one, and it's something that starts at hiring and really continues through measurement in the company. So having feedback sessions where you review your employees, but your employees also get to review your performance, and that when they review your performance, when you review their performance, it's focused on outcomes, not on blame. And being able to help them through difficulties. You want them to be there for you. That's why you're hiring them, just like you are going to be there for them. And so kind of stating that very plainly, when you talk about the business's progress moving forward, having sympathy cards that the office signs when someone is going through hardship, having a birthday cake when somebody has a birthday. Those are all ways to bring an office closer together, or bring staff closer together around creating a community. But like I said, the outcomes and feeling like you've made progress and successful moves forward with the business really do help you retain those folks for growth. But then identifying those key performance indicators will help you measure that moving forward. So thinking through, what are the most important things for me to measure? My guess is, even though holding doors may be a really important part and have a lot to do with appreciation, there's probably a better measure out there for appreciation. Do folks respond to your emails? Do folks take action on the items that you list are important? And are folks coming to you with questions and concerns? So that's the appreciation side. The growth side is using your staff to identify gaps, and then trying your best to fill those gaps as quickly as possible, and as carefully as possible. Bringing in new team members can really disrupt the culture of a business. And so they say hire slow, fire fast. And this is not advice to fire people, because that has to be done carefully. But making sure that the folks that you have in your business are helping you work towards growing the business. So stating what that growth goal is, making that a wildly important goal, and identifying and helping your team identify ways that they can contribute to capturing that wildly important goal by using what are called lead indicators. So there are two types of indicators that will say, I've either been successful, those are lag indicators, and lead indicators. Lead indicators are predictors of success. So for example, a predictor of if somebody's going to walk out and not come back to your business is maybe they've been showing up late for the last week, right? Maybe they are not responding to your emails, right? A predictor of somebody who's satisfied with their job, they're happy at the office, they contribute their both opinions and ours appropriately to work, and are comfortable giving feedback. That answer your question?
I think that's an awesome answer to that question. And I think you touched on something that is so very important, which is communication, right? And so fostering a culture of communication so that when those metrics, you're seeing lags within your team to help you meet the metrics that you have set forth, the culture of greatness that you're aiming for as the leader of that organization, that direct communication is so very important, in a really timely manner. I love the hierarchy that you shared, and I love that this idea that you can have executive leadership no matter where you are within an organization, and fostering that and fostering that as one of your wildly important goals, right? It's really very cool concept. So I have not read Good to Great, but I will be after today. I know it's one of the classics.
It is a classic. Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. The first book that he wrote was actually called Built for Great or something like that, and it's companies that have always been great. And I think it was Goldman Sachs that went to Jim Collins and was like, yeah, that's great if you're just like out the gate fantastic, but what about all those companies that want to become better? And he talks about how good is the enemy of great, that what you're doing now, if you're doing good now, it's hard to move past being good, right? You're taking risks when you're moving past good, and you're changing things about the way your operation works to move into that greatness. And it all starts with the leadership. And so he talks about how leadership and personnel really is a cliched piece of advice on building a good business, but it really comes down to it both in the data as well as sort of through experiences and stories that you hear from businesses. And Taylor, to your point of communication, if your folks don't know that they're lagging behind, they are not going to be able to change that. And a small change, especially just in the way you communicate, saying like, hey, okay, let's think about what a scoreboard might look like for reaching our successful measures. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I don't know that I want everything about my work publicized to my coworkers. So choosing those metrics carefully so as not to shame anyone. But understanding that if somebody doesn't know that they are not operating as efficiently as the rest of the team, might just be okay, what is it that you're doing differently, and then sharing with them some best practices of other team members, letting them cross train for resilience will bolster the growth potential of your company. So if we don't have any more questions at this point, and you think of some later, please feel free to reach out to us at the Alabama Small Business Development Center. Again, it's a no-cost service. The registration link, it will take you a couple minutes to fill out. And then once you're registered, you can go ahead and schedule an advising session with me right through my calendar. So again, the links on this slide will be live when you get the PDF version. And then I think, and then all of our contact information will also be in the email following this presentation. So out of respect for everyone's time, because I know we're taking time out of your workday, and I really appreciate you being here. Again, this is just the beginning. I hope that you reach out to any one of the resource partners that are participating in this seminar and are able to hop on to additional trainings we've got coming up over the next couple weeks. So next week we are taking a break for Labor Day, but after that we're doing a Sales 101, generating prospects and closing the sale, and inventory management, fulfillment, and your bottom line. And these are all no-cost classes. If you can't attend, please still sign up so that we know you're interested. If you think of other topics that you would like us to cover in the future, please let us know. Reach out to Rev Birmingham, reach out to myself, reach out to any of the other partners in this collaborative effort so that we know what types of topics you're interested in. And I think we're planning on a class on Instagram, and I think we're also going to do something on like a bankers roundtable for this round of trainings, and then in the fall we'll be doing another set of trainings for sort of the fall group. So you're more than welcome to check out our YouTube channel. Please check out and sign up for additional trainings. And with that, I will say thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Stay safe and appreciate your staff because they're your most competitive advantage. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.